And then we're going
Wait,
live.
wait, you gotta wait because you gotta hit live on.
You guys quiet. You guys be quiet.
Are you going to lead the talking points? All right, we're streaming live.
All right, we're live.
We're live, baby.
All right. Hi guys. This is weird because we're on Zoom and I can't necessarily tell if folks are watching. That's all right. So I'm on my personal page. So hi y'all, I'm Lynnette. And I have this beautiful face over here. This is my whole sister. I know people have questions, and I'm not like sister in Christ. I mean, she is my sister in Christ, but this is my live sibling. We've been raised together and groomed together, and all the things of life. So that's why we named this Blended Discussions. Talk from both sides. Our parents had a peculiar task to blend a family, not just of kids and just all different things, but also of race. And so we've been in this game a long time. So this is Katie. You can say hi, Katie.
Hey, everybody, what's going on?
All right. And so for some who don't know me, I'm just going to list our professional credentials because I feel like sometimes that gets the attention of folk. But we count it all as nothing. We count it to know Christ as all. But for a career, I'm a family nurse practitioner. I am a professor of nursing at a local university. And so I teach nurses who are going for their baccalaureate degree. And this is all strategic because our parents kind of growing up instilled something in us that was kind of key when it comes to statistics and how this world is. It was very much, don't just quote what's going on out there, but be the one to change it. And you can't change it if you're not sitting at the table. And so we didn't just cry about laws and whine about it. We actually went back, made the sacrifice, lived very humbly for a long time, right? Since a long time. Lived humbly for a lot of years and gained a seat at the table so we can make decisions and we're not just, what they say, in the yard where the consequences are being handed out. Come on, we're talking tonight.
Consequences.
And tell them all the things the doctor
words are. Do what?
Tell me your titles and all the things.
Oh, I don't know. I don't really use titles. I am an attorney. I have practiced as an Air Force JAG, whoop, whoop, to the JAG Corps. I currently work for the Army. And I am also a investigative filmmaker / journalist and activist and mother and blogger and podcaster. So depends on the day, depends on the moment, and what the moment calls for is what we're gonna be doing. Yes. And mother of 6 peoples that we're responsible for, and also have a blended family. So
moment calls for. Uh-oh. Okay. So all right. Okay, so what I want to touch base on, so I'm going to give a little background about who we are, and this is really for my circle. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're all overwhelmed with emotions, and how do we deal? Sometimes we feel kind of hopeless, right? Hopeless and helpless. I'm in that boat too. You know, it's been a long time. And so you do feel like, what do I do? What can I do? And how can I manage what I'm feeling right now? There's a lot of folks who don't even understand, who don't quite get it, what and why this is happening. So I wanted to share our unique perspective, my unique perspective as a Black woman in this country. Married to a Black man, raising young Black men, you know, my family, it's just a lot, but I want to share our unique, my unique experience, and then I want to share our unique experience as a family. And so I'll start really quick. I have 7 children. I know. I'd get it out.
All 7, breathe.
7, got them. 7 kids, and so we have 3 boys and 4 girls, and we have a blended bunch of blessings. And so our oldest is 23, and our youngest is 9. and we've been married for about 12 years and super grateful. I love, who don't love their family, right? And you kill a brick for them, right? So that's my crew. And so I'm gonna have my sissy share her family dynamic.
We have, like I said, 6 kids. Oldest is now 23, youngest is 9, 4 boys, 2 girls, and yeah, we're like the Brady Bunch, 3 and 3. So we're blending races, we're blending families, we're blending ages, genders, and all of it. And I think in our society now, whether you're blending a family or you're blending a friendship or you're blending professional relationships, I think it's very key to understand how to blend, because you are not going to get through this lifetime in this country without having to blend. And I think that's what people right now, as we see on our timelines, on the news and everything else, what the struggle is people are not sure how to blend, what it looks like, what it should look like. I thought it should look like this. I thought I was blending. I thought I was doing it better. How can I do it better? And so whether it's you're blending in a family, in a relationship, you're going to have to blend in our society, in life, on this planet. And I think it's so key now, because what's being shown is the deficiency and the lack of awareness on how to blend or what it looks like. And that's what's so dope, because it's an opportunity and God has placed this right in all of our laps. And this is the opportunity, and we are not going to miss this moment.
Yes. So a little bit of dynamic about our family. So my dad, her dad is white. He's a white male. I mean, he's a fine white male. I mean, dusty gray hair, like just tall. He actually looks like Kaden. He looks like a white Stedman.
He looks like Stedman, yeah.
He's a white Stedman. And then, my mom is African American, of course. And so we're a blended family of 9. So I have 3 siblings that are white, 6 that are Black. So we had 3, we had 5, and then we actually had 1 that was adopted later on. Shout out to Michelle.
Shout out.
So we come from a blended bunch of blessings, and this blended bunch of blessings happened, late 80s, early 90s. And so this isn't new to us by far.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to share with some folks who know me personally, just to kind of bring this a little bit closer to home, on how to explain kind of what's happening or my take on it. And I'll try to make this quick because I know our attention spans aren't as long. So growing up as a Black woman in America, I think this whole situation and what's happened over the last couple of weeks, I feel, this is weird to say, but hear me out. I'm grateful. I feel kind of like we can exhale a little bit, because this thing that has been poking at Black people or this monster that's really kind of been silently oppressing, like that devil, he's sneaky. He smack you and hide his hand real quick, right? And then we try to point at the hand. People are like, it's 2019, 2020. This doesn't exist. What are you talking about? So what ends up happening is that you end up not talking about it. You just learn how to deal. And so when this situation happened and I sense a shifting happen, I feel like more people feel it. They understand, and they're lamenting, they're crying, like it's too much. And I'm like grateful that the spotlight has been shown. And I'm like, you see that right there? That is what we've been talking about.
We're not crazy. Yeah.
We're not crazy. This is what we've been talking about. And so that feeling that people feel that's so heavy, and I know it's a heavy load, it is a heavy burden. And I want to share with you, if you can imagine having to carry that all your life. So really quick story about us. Y'all know our the neighborhood I grew up in is, it's right down from Ravenswood Manor, actually. Kate Moore grew up in Albany Park, and we kind of meshed together. But right off of Irving Park in Kedzie, my parents, my biological father was a Marine. And so they bought a home on Richmond and Berteau. I went to Bateman Elementary, right on the corner. We were there for most of my life until recently our parents sold the house. So we grew up right there. And in my lifetime, I can tell y'all that when we first moved there, people didn't like it. And they burned a cross in our yard. Yeah, burned a cross in our yard. I've experienced this
in Chicago in the early 80s. This was not the South. This wasn't Bumble F City. And I think it's important to say that, because people hear that, people read it, and we think it's some sort of historical crazy thing that happens, but no.
Very
It
present,
happened
very relevant thing.
to us children when we were that age. And I remember yep, it's like vivid. Yeah.
So that happened. We had the word nigger sprayed and painted on our garage because we were the Black family that moved in. We've experienced the white flight where then people left the neighborhood. My mom was determined that she was not going to raise her Black boys, in a bad area where they can possibly become a statistic. And so they fought their way out. Shout out to Hamilton. I wrote my way out, but fought my way out to my mama. Okay. Then we began going to a small church in the Albany Park area. We met my sister's family, and long story short, our families blended. And from that young age, we had to have very just serious conversations. Like there was no sugarcoating it. My mom was raising 3 Black boys. I have a stepbrother who's a tall, white, handsome male. And my sister, beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, and we have another younger sister. So they had to give us the face of realities on how people are going to look at you, period. And one of the beautiful things I think of how our parents raised us with a very kingdom mindset, but to be aware of the system that's going around us, but to not, to be aware of it, but somehow they instilled that into us that don't let it defeat you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that?
Yeah. I think it was a charge. It was a charge that this is going on, but you're here for this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's yeah. Although, and I will say, and I mean to cut you off this, but as a child, and I think this is what a lot of people can relate to now, you're hearing it, you're seeing it, it's hitting you in a different way. And you're going, I don't know if that's going on. Or I'll say prior to George Floyd, maybe you always responded to other killings or other situations with some sort of contextual argument or factual reason why. That's not what's going on. This isn't a race thing. This is because of this, and this. Well, I would tell you as a teenager, even though regardless of what family you're brought up in or whatever else, for a teenager with white skin, at the same time, you're being told this is this, and this is why this is happening. This is why this is happening. Doesn't mean that you swallow it whole and you just believe it.
Yes.
It's still the process that everyone is going through now. Every human still had to go through with understanding, processing, digesting, butting against it, saying, I don't think that's really going on the way they say that's going on. You know what I mean? Because you do that whole denial, then you want to contextualize it, then you want to find excuses for it, then you want to find a reason why everybody else is crazy and that's not what's happening, and you see what's really happening. And then finally you arrive at a point, which is what we like, it's kind of an awakening, really. And people, I think it's cliche to say woke, but it truly, to describe it properly, is an awakening.
Yeah. So with all that, we had unique perspectives, and there was a treatment that was going to be different. And so conversations that I've noticed is that families are just now starting to have, and I'm thankful for. This is a conversation we've had at a very young age, because we were unique in the way our family was joined together. And our parents taught us early that in this world, they're going to treat you different, but there's a way that God has called you both to handle it, right? And so I give this example often. Our parents taught us that, our white siblings they might have a different treatment than y'all. Doesn't mean you're different or whatever. This is just the system of the world. So it was very much, it's not us, right? It's how this system has set up a world. It's not right and it's not fair. And we eventually got in the game to infiltrate it so we can change it. But when we were younger, they were just making us aware this is how it happens. And so my siblings of the lighter hue, they were called the gatekeepers, and they used their privilege and their the doors that were open to them, possibly easy, to pull us siblings in who may not have had such an easy time getting in the door. And so that's action point number 1. There you go. Kind of jumped ahead of myself. But this, when people are asking what to do, this is one of the things that we did growing up. Kate knew that, things that were going to be, there were doors that were going to be open to her. So for example, one of my first jobs, she worked at a hospital, and they said they were looking for a front desk person. And she was like, oh, my sister, she'd be great for that position. They loved her, right? And they moved me through listen, I didn't even meet them yet. It was 3 days before I went in to meet a person. I sent everything in, did all this stuff because they were so excited. Like, yes, send her through, all this favor. And I remember I finally went in to meet the manager to sign like just some final documents. And she kind of stepped back and was like, oh, you're Kate's sister? Now we were raised like our parents also raised us in a blended family that there is no different. You're not a stepsister. This is your sister. You know, I don't have a stepfather and stepmother. This is your mom. This is your, like, we're very close. And I was like, yeah, my sister. And they were kind of like, oh, well, you must be her husband's sister. And I was like, no, that is my sister. And I had to remember, like, oh, shoot, I got to explain. Okay, that's my stepsister. Okay, that's how that works, you know. But the point is that she used her privilege and her influence to open a door that moved me through drastically faster than probably if I applied on my own. And so you got to be strategic in that, right? We know the system in the world we live in, but how can we use our positions of power to give opportunity to someone or some one that may not have had it as easily? Mm-hmm. Okay, you want to speak to that, Sissy? I don't know.
No. I was just going to say, I think privilege and white privilege could be a whole nother discussion and topic. And yeah. I think recognizing it shows up in many ways, and it's interwoven into our society. And unfortunately, most people of the lighter hue have a negative view of that. You know what I mean? They view it as it's almost offensive when you say it to them, because they feel like the privilege means that they didn't work for it or they don't deserve it, which is not the case. And I want to point out that privilege, the only reason it's used, or that term is used, it doesn't mean that you didn't earn it. It doesn't mean that you're not worth whatever it is that you have, but it means that that privilege was given to you and likely not given to somebody else in the same way. And it doesn't mean that you are any more or less or should have been more or less because you got the privilege that you want to say you don't have or you don't even recognize. But it's almost like saying equality doesn't mean you lose something. It just means that everyone should have the same privilege. And obviously the hope and the prayer is that at some point you won't have to use the term privilege because everyone will have the same thing, right? And so the only reason that's used is not that, because I think a lot of people buck the term privilege because it becomes offensive to them, because all of a sudden it's like, wait, are you saying I don't deserve it? Are you saying this? Are you saying that? Which goes into, if we want to discuss affirmative action, why people have issues with that, because for some reason they think it's taking from someone versus righting a disparity that has existed. But if you don't acknowledge the disparity, you're not going to acknowledge the need for the action or the need for the privilege.
Yes, and so I think, let's start now acknowledging the disparity, right? So from a Black female perspective, I view things different how they're going on. I know there's some people out there that may not understand, and just like even the looting, the difference between the protest, looting, rioting, how does all that gel? It doesn't make sense to them. They're mad because their local stores are destroyed, and they're wondering, maybe you're seeing some things on social media and you're wondering, how are you rationalizing that? This is not right, right? I get it. And so from my perspective, I feel like, not that I condone it, but I understand it. I understand it because it is tough being this in America. And when I say that, I really mean, I'm gonna give y'all some truth and some vulnerability here. I feel like most of my life, I've always been in a diverse community. I've often been the only Black person in the crowd, right? And when I say Black, meaning like American, I had some, I've been around some Ethiopians, Nigerians, but who can really go back to their homeland, like a place of home, but African American, I'm really kind of like the only one. And sometimes when I'm in crowds of a lighter hue, I have to be something. First, they say first impressions.
Or not be something.
Or not be something. Yeah. So I know I have to turn it up, right? So when I go, I make sure I smile. So y'all know I'm not threatening. I want to be Black folk.
Give it to them.
Smiling. I got to be, I got to keep it light. Let me, and let me not use too much of how I would talk to my family, because I got to be something, because there's so much. It's just deep, y'all. It runs deep. And I hope y'all know what I'm saying, or understand what I'm saying, that this system, this principality runs so deep that this is what people have to do to kind of be not accepted. I don't want to say accepted, but I'm saying accepted because that's the best word I could come up with right now. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine?
Included or affirmed, yeah.
More affirmed, right, to be affirmed. Mm-hmm. So I'm in my late 30s, and it gets exhausting trying to be, and then it's still not matter. So, for example, I look at the thing that I feel like tipped me, Ahmaud Arbery, the fact that non-police, just citizens went in and thought that they could just take his life. That happened in February, and just an arrest is being made in May. The trauma that I feel is that I witnessed my own brother be arrested and taken to jail for supposedly not having a turn signal on. This is a Black man. He's beautiful. I mean, educated, a DePaul graduate, an entrepreneur, just a great man of God. And he was treated he was so dehumanized. We had to, and so our parents taught us that if something goes down, whether it's an accident or someone goes, everyone get there quick, because you can't let the system get a hold of our people. We knew that. So we got up there quick. An attorney got up there quick, right? And when they finally let him out hours later for a turn signal, y'all, the car was messed up. They broke his phone. They just dehumanized, like dignity gone. It just didn't take all that. And I don't know if y'all have ever faced that feeling when someone looks and talks at you and you know they're talking at you like you're less than. It does something to your soul, and it does make you angry. I've had it happen to me recently. True story, PNC Bank on Harlem. I'm a depositor on our parents' ministry account. I've deposited money, done many transactions. I go in to take out money for a mission. I'm getting ready to donate to a missionary. I was asked for a second ID. I was like, why do I need second ID? Like, where's that at? What's the rule in that? I was like, I'm a signer on the account, what the confusion is. They pulled up the signage sheet and they look at my signature, and then they say, your signature doesn't match on your ID. Like, we need some more proof. When I tell you, when they're going for who you are and demean you.
Yeah, they pull in the car, yeah.
I get so mad. I was so mad. And then I'll turn into the angry Black girl, right? When I'm like, where's the manager? Why? And I'm angry because it's so dehumanizing. And I'm like, I remember talking to my mom and I just cried. Like, my dad, he wrote a strongly worded letter. My mom called up. They're like, we move because we know how to move, because we've been raised in this unique way. But I talked to my mom, like, why? I was just in tears, like, I have a double master's degree. I've done it right. I talk how I'm supposed to talk. Like, I'm not out there, doing all the bad things. Like, what else do I have to be to take money out for a mission? Well, I'm a saved. Like, what else do I got to be? And so that is a feeling that Black folks, it's a trauma that happens over and over again. And so you all know I'm in the medical field, and this is traumas that happen over a long time. It's called complex trauma. Like, it's a thing. Like, when people have chronic disease, when you think about fibromyalgia or diabetes, those things that carry on for a long time, they wear on the body, right? So now imagine all these little micro traumas, these little dehumanizing things. When COVID came out, who's disproportionately affected? Black people. The faces that they showed online, Black women. I took that in. I remember talking to my husband, like, is it me, or is it like Black folks are dying from this? So we have a pandemic where we can't go outside. Little things, these images that you keep saying you're not going to survive, whether it's people's personal biases that are happening or underlying conditions, who's to tell? You're not going to survive. And then you have Ahmaud Arbery, just people randomly killed, didn't get arrested until months later. Then you have Breonna Taylor. She's a frontline EMS in the COVID, beautiful soul. Her fiance is in his home. What else does he have to be? He abided by the rules. He's licensed to carry. Someone's coming in his house, not saying he did what he did. He reacted like any human, and immediately he's arrested. Didn't get released until people from around the world came to his aid and they released him. And then you have George Floyd, who this is blatant, outright, like, you just not gonna let the man up. You just not gonna have no mercy. And then he dies as a result. And then there's no movement. For a Black person, I've seen movement very quick. For silly stuff, for a turn signal, this man just took a life, and the system isn't moving in or doing anything. You get to the point where the traumas hurt so much. I've heard this said before. It's almost like they just keep giving you little paper cuts. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Mm-hmm. You're just supposed to be like, be peaceful, keep going. It's all right. Pray on. Come on. Keep praying and marching. Praying. I get it. I'm tired. Mm-hmm. I'm exhausted trying to explain how exhausting it is to be in this thing. I recognize, first of all, I recognize I am a child of God, set here deployed in this body, in this earth suit. I recognize that. And that is the only thing that is keeping me sane and keeping me rational. You understand? Because this is a lot. And so I get that it's a lot for some people to bear and to understand, but this is something we've learned to cope. We have learned to cope. So I feel a sense of relief that folks are crying and they feel that pain. And I'm like, thank you. You feel?
Well, Sissy, what I want to say is nothing is meant for tragedy, complex trauma, any of that. Nothing is meant to be carried in an individual body or body of people alone, right? Nothing. Mm-hmm. Even when someone dies spiritually, I believe that's why you gather, so that you can carry the load of the grief, right? And so if you can imagine a generation of people who in this nation have been told either one, you're crazy and X doesn't exist, there's no problem, you're playing a race card, it's all in your head, so-and-so's not racist, this isn't the issue, in that case there were these facts, this is what's going on over here. And so all that begins to happen. And so one, half the people do think you may think you're crazy yourself half the time. You like, wait a minute, do I got a problem? So you not only are you questioning your mental health is being pulled and stretched and tried on every level. And then when you talk about the complex trauma and the correlation between the higher risk categories and why it's hitting the African American community on such high levels. So you talk about what is the reason for the complex trauma is systemic oppression, right? Yes. So that's happening. So you're dealing with systemic oppression and the mental health, physical problems and issues that happen in your body because of that. And then the pandemic just exasperates it. And now you have on top of that, random strangers, not even the police, on any given day, if they just feel like you may or may not be a person walking by a construction site, you may or may not be at the wrong house where they're trying to execute a warrant, you may or may not be a 13-year-old in a park with a water gun, whatever your thing happens to be for the day. And we can all pretend and just love Jesus and love everybody and love this and love that. But the people at risk are the people who carry the skin color where you walk out. And as much as we all want to skip through the roses and skip through the lilies, at the end of the day, the burden falls heavier on some people because the fear is there.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. And so, and if we acknowledge that, like if we just recognize that alone, like that for whatever reason, this system has built this stuff that is in a lot of us. So even when we teach our kids, I have to be careful not to teach internalized oppression, where they're bowing. I just need them to be aware, respect what's happening, but know that because they're a child of God, it doesn't quite apply to them and they can change it. And so,
which is also BS, because that's also additional work that is put on communities that have to not only train themselves how to live, how to be good Christians, how to be good people, how to be professionals, how to be this, how to be that. And now we also have to, now go to these extra lengths to tap dance and make sure you don't piss off brother Bobby over here because he got a dad with a rifle, and this one over here because she kind of weird and she look at you funny, or she may call the police because of da. So it's all these extra things.
A lot.
And then to top it all off, which really just, this is, and I can speak to this in a minute, is then you're responsible for also making people feel like, but you're not racist. So I'm not saying you're racist.
Oh, you're okay. Yeah. I have to soothe you.
I have to soothe you because
all these other burdens.
Yeah.
And then you make sure it's exhausting, y'all. Hear me when I say, I love y'all. I do. And I know this is why we call It's Just Real Talk. We're having a blended discussion. Okay. And what I'm thankful for is that people are willing to hear this hard conversation. It is a hard conversation to have because I know the weight of it. It's heavy. And I don't, like as a human, because I've experienced, I don't wish this on people. I'm glad it's being recognized so we can talk about it, because I feel like as we talk about it, the burden, like you said, we're not meant to carry this burden by ourselves.
No, it minimizes. Well, anything that you acknowledge can be fixed.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we've gone so wrong in historically and in how we've done things. There's nothing acknowledged. You cannot fix a problem that you don't even acknowledge. For instance, and I'm going to say this, for instance, we have a president and an administration that will not even acknowledge even today why protesters are out there or what the problem is, and yet will condemn them, right? Condemn them, critique them, criticize them, and call on, what did he say? You have to become, dominate them, shooting when the looting starts, and calling, this is leadership on top of you are not even acknowledging why they're there.
Yeah.
And that's when every person does that in your conversations, in your threads, in your little smart analysis that everybody thinks they're so smart and da 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 da. You are missing the fact of even the acknowledgement. And every time it's skipped over, you've missed an opportunity for a healing moment so that we can minimize the pressure. Once the pressure becomes minimized, now we can begin to get to healing, but you can't get to healing until the pressure is released, right? And I'm sure there's some medical something somewhere about that, but you know how when you have to, if it's bulging up, you got to cut it so that it bleeds out, right? You got to clean it out first. But America, we don't. The white population, and I say this, don't get offended. Whatever category you fall into, and it's not about skin color, because I use the term white more from the term of the construct of the people that do not want to acknowledge but also benefit from the system. For me, I don't get offended when you talk about white folks. I don't get offended about none of that because I don't consider myself part of a construct. I live in a world, I get benefits, and then I know how to shift the burdens, play the game, and go ahead and distribute things in other ways. And until the system changes, we're just going to work to dismantle it from the bottom. And that's the thing. But nothing's going to offend me. So we've got to remove the blanket of offense that everybody carries around to cover up your guilt and your shame that is there, not on purpose, but because of the spiritual DNA that comes from plantation owners and slave owners. I'm just gonna say it. That's what it is.
On that note, let's talk about what's at stake, because a lot of people don't understand. Like, we know African American history isn't taught. I mean, it's really just, it's dominated white male history in America, if truth be told, right? So on today, which a lot of people don't know, because there's this thing that goes around. It's like, they're like, Black people, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Why can't you just figure it out? Like, it's been so long, like y'all, like we're missing something. Like, why y'all just ain't figured it out yet? And can I tell you, we are trying, and there is principalities and powers in high places that are set to lock that thing down. Do you understand? So I know I am a lot further than where my great grandmother was. Like, I know that for a fact, right? But if we all work together, listen, that enemy has been found. If we all work together and see this, and we work to say, oh, not here, then this will soon have to be displaced, right? So today, literally on the day, yesterday and today, in 1921, was an event called the Tulsa Massacre. The Tulsa Massacre. And so the Tulsa Massacre was pretty much held in Greensboro, Oklahoma. And it was a town of the most affluent African Americans. This town had an airport, it had banks, or 100 businesses Black people owned houses in the surrounding neighborhood. And so a gentleman named, I think his name was don't quote me on it, his name is Rodney, Google it, go to Tulsa massacrehistory.com, you can Google it, okay? He was on the elevator with a white woman. And guess what happened, y'all? We heard this story before. Something she done said to people. She done went to the out of town and said this man done said something to her on the 3rd floor, and they came and burned it to the ground. Wait a minute. When you look it up, it says the perpetrators, it says this is documented in history. The perpetrators were the white American mob and the National Guard.
Yes.
Those were the perpetrators.
Law enforcement. Yeah.
They burned it to the ground. They killed over 300 people, and they then imprisoned over 6,000 people, held them for 8 days because a white woman said a black man did something to him. The most affluent town that obviously we built. We didn't get a check. We didn't get cut a check.
Well, and sister, real quick, that's when you do the math, 1921 from 1865, you're talking about 55 years after slavery, right? Without reparations, without 40 acres and a mule, they didn't give them jack. On top of all of the things in legislation and systemic and economic attempts and blocks to keep them from being seen as human, to keep them from other populations, and to find ways to not provide the same, not more than, the same as everybody else. And so now what she's talking about, that is when that happened. So think about what had to have happened for them to get to that point, and then how fast a particular statement and allegation. So if we want to talk about due process and people mad about burning up stuff, baby, you could take that conversation someplace else, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, when people, and I'm going to say this and people may not like it, I don't care. When you make that statement, you show yourself ignorant, right? When you make a statement, I don't understand, nothing's worth that. You shouldn't ever do that. Meh. That may or may not be a fact, but it shows you historically ignorant, because this entire nation, sadly, right? I'll tell you one thing, certain people weren't making the rules. So whatever it is, but this is the historical legacy of this nation: rioting, burning things down, lynching people when we don't like things. So now to stand here and say, well, it's not right. Well, at least it was because somebody died, right? It wasn't because someone just got upset about something and they just went off and went left, right? So every time that conversation comes up, I think we have to pause. And when you see it, check yourself, do some history searching, some soul searching, and some Googling that'll very quickly get you right back in line. And we're not saying that that's the answer, but what we're saying is, one, we didn't create it. We are, you know what I'm saying? We're not the ones running around doing that stuff. And it wasn't our idea, but let's not lose fact of why people are angry.
Yeah.
So sorry.
That was good. Kate's an attorney, y'all. Like she just cut it straight. She gets right to the jugular. I'm in the nursing. I'm more of a nurturer.
Nicer. She's very much nicer. I'm more of the punch you in the face sister.
Yeah, I round her out. But on that note, it's all still very kind of true. But on that note, they detained these folks. Here's the thing. That was 1921, so 99 years ago to today. And I kind of feel like, I get deep. Y'all know me, I get deep, I get real spiritual. And I'm like, I feel like when Cain killed Abel, y'all remember that story in the Bible? And, it was like, where's your brother? God was like, and then he was like, I don't know, like, because he killed him, And God said, I hear his blood screaming from the ground.
Come on.
I feel like that's today.
Yep, it is.
It's like the blood is screaming from the ground. Like, that's why we feel this burden. Like, what happened? Because here's the thing, y'all. All that happened is documented in history. And guess what? Nobody was prosecuted. There has been no restoration.
Yep.
There has been no one held accountable.
Yep.
Even still today, the Red Cross went in without necessary governmental assistance. It was folks who just wanted to help. The 6,000 people, y'all look this up. The 6,000 people that were in the detainment center, they had to get out. A white person had to vouch for them and sign for them to say that they were going to be responsible for them, that they wouldn't commit any subordinate acts. What was subordinate about trying to survive in this land after just being released from slavery not too long?
Well, and let's not forget that they went back home to all of their homes, businesses, likely family members dead, and businesses and everything gone.
And no one accountable for it. No one acknowledged it. It's just a part of history. And so I say that because and
I'm going to say this too real quick, sorry. It's maybe a couple lines in your textbook if you have a good textbook. Maybe.
I mean, show of hands, I can't really see. Can y'all see who's heard of the Tulsa Massacre? Like, can y'all? Oh, I can't really see. Anyway, maybe not. I'll look at the comments later. But my point is that this is something when we were told when we were growing up and they would tell us to write book reports, my mom would step in and say, okay, pick a Black person, because they need to know and recognize and see people in there, people who look like them that are successful. We're not reading about all these white males, So we know this history because we were kind of raised with it, and thankfully, right? Thank God. But when you understand that, I hope y'all can sympathize a little bit more than when you first started hearing us talk about the weight of when things are broke. And yes, it's crazy, it's chaotic. Yes, people worked for it, but y'all, they're not hearing us.
Yeah.
The
voices haven't been heard since 1619. And more so, the guilt and the shame then turns into manifested evil in other forms and fashions. It gets led into systems. It's how the system was created, right? Yeah. We all know that a fruit that bears, a tree that bears fruit, what, you know what I mean? So it's either good fruit or evil fruit. And so there's no way to create something in the roots and the fruit. You have something evil at the root. What's the fruit going to look like? So when we're looking at a nation, we're looking at a society, we're looking at issues, we're looking at criminal justice systems, we're looking at economic policies. Everything is connected. There's nothing in a vacuum. And again, I go back to, we have protesters on the streets the protesters, we're not talking about the looting right now, but I don't have
Different.
time talking about that either, but the protesters right now, the administration right now will not even acknowledge what the hurt is, what the
Yeah.
pain is, right? And I say that there is a shifting and there's a reconciliation that is coming, that the Lord is preparing, and this is the time and this is the moment for it. And the reason I say that is because you can look around, like you said, and you feel it lifting, because
Yeah.
even though the leadership that is set and voted in this country is not acknowledging it, other leaders are. And I say, if you are a person, especially that is an ally and is a person of a lighter persuasion, our job is to not only carry the grief, carry the shame, understand it, take it, digest it, right? Not take it toxic internally. You take it on a divine level and you share that burden, right? You share it and then you lead. What we need right now that is lacking in our society, in this government, is leadership. Every leader that I've heard get on right now, except for Trump, basically, and except for Fox News, I'll say this, is legitimately calling it what it is. America is broken, America is sick, and it's struggling. And this is the cry of that. And when we as a people and as leaders, and those of us who love the Lord and love our brothers and sisters, regardless, take up the mantle to lead now, but you can't lead until you acknowledge. And you know what I'm saying? You can't pick up your action. You can't pick up your taskers until you acknowledge what the mission is. You see what I'm saying? And so people have been trying to do things without really fully understanding.
Just sit with it.
Understanding, and you get the heartbreak, because it's heartbreaking. And it should. If it doesn't break your heart, you probably want to do some more checking, because if that doesn't break your heart, a simple Google search, a couple documentaries, you can read books, we can have discussions. If that doesn't break your heart, because we all know what's happening is breaking people's heart, but there's more to it, which is the context. You get all that under your belt and now say, boom, why am I in this moment, God? I am here to lead. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're missing. And that's what we're called to, is the leadership.
Yeah. I love that. And I hope y'all got something from that. I wanted my sister to come on because, there's sometimes, and I know we all feel this, but it's hard for me to articulate.
And you shouldn't always have to. You shouldn't always have to. I'm sorry. And I'm saying this because I love everybody. I truly do. You know what I'm saying? But I say, if you're born, like you said, you were born in that vessel for a purpose. If you're born in a vessel that more looks like my skin, whether you're brown, beige, whatever your color, tan, whatever your thing is, you got to talk to the Lord and say, why am I in this nation? Why am I here? What's my mandate in this time with these type of racial relations and background and history? What does that mean for me? Do I need to be a gatekeeper? Do I need to get some more understanding? Do I need to be a voice for the voiceless? Do I need to stand in the gap, right? Wherever that is, you find your spot, right? And like you, if you're of a darker persuasion, you're going to have a different mandate. You know what I'm saying? But we're all playing on the same team is what I'm saying.
And so the mandate, and this is great. I love you. Okay. I hope y'all are getting something from this. This is me being vulnerable because I'm a really private person.
Amen.
I just wanted to help us all understand, but so what is getting in the game? So this took a process. There was a process for us. And so getting in the game again, I can't complain about a system when I'm not willing to rise above what they say they qualify, what they need, what you need to qualify, right? And so that's why I went back. I was like, okay, well, I can't say it's racism because they didn't give me that position, and they up it and say you need a bachelor's degree. So you know what I did? Went back to school. I got a bachelor's degree, right? And then I'm like, well, a bachelor's degree is good, and I'm in nursing and it's beautiful, but I want to be at a level where I can make change, where I can be able to prescribe, diagnose, and treat, and maybe even educate on a higher level folks who look like me, because we're dying of silly stuff, right? Because of lack of education and resources.
Right.
And, I don't just complain about it. I then infiltrate the system. Yeah. And that was what I believe I was put in this earth suit to do. And I'm carrying that out. And so like my sister said, if you're of a lighter or beige color, then you figure out what I'm in this color, what field or sphere of influence am I in, and how can I affect change in this moment? So let me just share a story really quick. In the hospital, I've had to advocate for patients, Black and brown, really, because there's a cultural, I guess we assume that everyone's been exposed to different cultures, and it's not true. And that's a problem. So if y'all ain't exposed, don't do TV exposure because that's not often real. Okay. Find you some real life people, like actually seek out these different ways to
That's
talk.
part of that's part of and for just lack of better terms, I hope y'all pick it up in the spirit. That's part of the heartbreaking that has to happen, because otherwise you live your life asleep. You don't want to wake up and go, I've been asleep for 55 years, for 65 years. You know what I mean? That's part of the heartbreaking, but it's a divine heartbreaking, if that makes sense.
So at this point, we have to be intentional to expose each other to different cultures, right? And so because I had that experience, very diverse, I'm able to advocate or talk across lines to patients where there's some people of the lighter hue, they may not understand the culture, but what they see on TV. So for example, I had a patient who was just a dark-skinned brother, like Sudanese, purple black, right? With dreads. And he had a condition where he just didn't want to talk. He's in pain. And people were scared, I think, of his persona. So when it came in and shift, they're like, oh, Lynnette, we have a patient because we think you'd be good for you. And I was like, oh, okay, what's his condition? It was a simple condition. I was like, this ain't difficult. All right. I go in the room and I'm like, really? Because he's black? Okay. And they're like, he hasn't showered. He refuses all these things. And I'm like, wow, what's going on? So I go in, I'm like, hey, good morning, say my whole thing, do my assessment. And I'm like, explaining to him, we kind of need to shower, kind of helps with your healing and all the things, just educated him. Guess what? Not one resistance. I'm like, now, did he refuse it or did y'all not offer it because you're scared to put, you know what I'm saying, to communicate? And so this is why it's just important for me, where I have to infiltrate the system, right? I'm an advocate for the patients, and I'm also an advocate for my coworkers who maybe haven't had that experience of how to handle different cultures, you know what I mean? And to be a buffer for those who are willing to learn. And so that's what we do. So if you let me, whatever God has called you to do, whatever sphere of influence you're in, use that to be a voice for us to maybe bring understanding, right? And then I think when it comes as far as change, I'm going to give some action things. My pastor and his wife, my Nesty, gave up some action items in Chicago, if you're in Chicago, that you can do. Kate's in Maryland, so I know y'all going for a march tomorrow, so I'll let you share that. But like Kate said, if you have to just know that this is the skin that we're in. Do not get soaked up in, if you're the lighter hue, oh, this power feels good, why would I give it up? You understand? Like,
well, and I want to say real quick about that. I this is what I've found is that people won't even your ego doesn't even allow you to acknowledge that you have a power that's different than somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? Most people are not walking around going, I am so powerful, but most people are not doing that. They want to pretend that it's not there, and it's okay. And I think this is a time, like I said, for reconciliation, grace with ourselves and with others. Yes. But we really, it's time's out for not having the conversation or being in circles where we want to stand with people, but we don't want to stand in their pain. And that's not an ally. You have to figure out, because things, if it doesn't pertain to you, then you're missing something. It's like, why would my brother, sister, why would this person that I'm in this circle with be existing this pain, and I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist or think, yeah, I think that they're just exaggerating. So I think the biggest thing for people of lighter skin color have to be aware that it is time to acknowledge that a system was set up that you likely weren't a part of setting up, because I'm guessing nobody alive now was alive in 1619 or 1776 or 1865. So we have to just acknowledge that's what it is. And that's what it is. That's okay. And that's what we're called here to do.
Yeah. And it was put on you, just like it was put on us. So let's break free.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're not gonna be able to change your skin color unless you're Michael Jackson, and he gone on.
Ooh.
Right. So I'm sorry, I'm still saying, right? I mean, maybe, I don't know, but I'm saying you're not gonna be able to change your skin color, right? And we all love Michael. What?
He was still the greatest to ever do it. You judge him.
Look, let me tell you something. So we've just got to be real about where we're at. And part of loving our brother and sister is loving ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think the other thing where a lot of people that are of the lighter hue, the guilt and the shame, and that's a whole nother video, but that is something that also people have to be delivered from, because there's a pain, there's a fear there. There's a fear of what they're going to find. There's the fear that maybe this means that they're racist. This means that this means that. And so they're so worried about what it's called that they don't want to look at it. We have to, those of us that are becoming awake and aren't awakened unto the Spirit of God, have to be the ones to build that bridge for that people can cross over. Because if that bridge is not built, then we got people over here and people stuck over here, and everybody's yelling and nobody's walking across. And so we have to, for the lighter skinned folks, as people begin to cross the bridge, we have to be praying and show and demonstrate how you live guilt free, because there's a guilt there and there's a shame there, because what our ancestors did is absolutely horrific.
And it's sad, but hey, a new day.
Sorry.
It's a new day. And so we rate Isaiah 58:6, right? What do we call it to do? We're called to break the bands of wickedness, right? So Mama put this in there. Undo the heavy burdens, let the oppressed go free, and every yoke, to break every yoke. This is what Jesus called to do. We are empowered to do this. So we have hope. I know the world looks hopeless. So leave you guys with this. When you're talking to a sister or a brother that's darker looking like me, and you look like my sister, just listen. Mm-hmm. Just listen and let your heart break. Cry if you. I've been crying all morning, y'all. I'm tired. Okay, it's okay to cry and let that release that emotion, right? Let's not let this invisible monster still exist, because, like Kate said, you don't want to confront that thing because of what the title is or whatever. And the truth of the matter is that as a Black woman, I don't feel I'm none of these things that they try to put on me. But I still have to bust through that. It's the
same thing for white people. Most white people are not hiding KKK, cloaks in their closet, right? They're not. But because they're afraid that if they find something, that it means that they got a KKK hood hidden in their closet, you don't want to go there. And we've got to remove that stigma to where it's like, you've got to get away from that. Reconciliation does not mean that you probably got something hidden up in your closet. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference there. But if you do, that's a whole nother conversation.
We'll lay hands. Put your head on the camera, Holly.
Hey, but I know you're going to talk action steps. You want me to go first, or you want to go?
Yeah, go first, because you're in Maryland.
All right. So I just want to say, if you're in the Maryland area, you can hit me up. We're going to be going to Columbia, Maryland, AMC Mall tomorrow at the theater, beginning at about 3:15, 3:30. There's going to be a march. There's going to be speakers, and it's going to be a vigil. So that's something that you can do. There's organized rallies and things taking place all the time. Do not be afraid because of this whole looting and lawlessness that's being put out in the narrative. The point is we show up. The point is we stand together. And the point is that we work through this thing together. No one should protest alone. No one should carry this alone. Our voices, our threads, our Facebook, wherever your circle and wherever you show up at with the fullness of whatever and whoever you are. Right? Not the ego of who you are, but whoever you are fully. And the other thing I'm going to say, I'm not going to go on a long rant about this. We have to vote. If voting after this, because this is gonna at some point die down, we have to have a new resolve and a new focus on voting, because right now with legislation the way that it is, if the administration doesn't change or the Senate doesn't change, we flip the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, but we can't push legislation if we don't have the Senate and the White House. And so we've got to think about that. At local levels, you should be looking at who your district attorneys are, who your judges are, who your chief of police, all the elected positions, the commissioners, because those are the people who make decisions regarding George Floyd's. Those are the people who make decisions regarding when to charge, what to charge, and how to charge. And so we've got to pay more attention and vote. That should be tattooed on your arm, part of your conversation wherever you go. Show people, help people, point people in the right direction, because this isn't just a cliche, just vote. Everyone needs to figure out how to vote and what we should be voting for.
I love what you just did, and we might do something together about that, like what this election, the commissioners, DA, and all that.
That's where it matters. Our protesting doesn't matter if we're not going to vote.
Yeah. All right. So in Chicago, we're northwest side of the city. So tomorrow there's going to be a march in Brownsville at 6 p.m. And again, this is just standing in solidarity. Our church, the Brookshire, has got together with some other, local Chicagoland churches. And so the body of Christ will be there to march for that, again, aside from all the craziness.
And I just want to say, shout out to your church. I truly love y'all, the Brook. I know y'all don't know me, but I truly do love you. I watch y'all, and I love how you're taking care of my sister. I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart, because she knows I am very protective of my sisters. I will show up. And so if I heard y'all was doing anything out of line, you would have me on your front porch, and that is not a good thing. But I truly appreciate the Brook loving my sister, my brother, my nieces, my nephews, and my whole family. I truly appreciate y'all and the work that you're doing and doing the hard work. So I just want to say that I truly appreciate y'all.
Shout out.
And I would attend there if I was closer.
Boom.
So shout out. If you in Chicago, you should be hitting up the Brook.
Boom. Come Brookshire. All right. So with that, So we partner with the Justice Coalition. You guys can go to brightstarchurchchicago.com for more about the march. Let's see. And then tomorrow morning on the Brookshire, I believe it's brookshire.com. I don't know if I'm quoting this wrong, but somebody could post it in the comments what our pages, or go to our Facebook page, you'll see it. They'll be posted some more volunteer opportunities to clean. So we're, everyone's getting involved in cleaning up the city. So there'll be more opportunities to be able to volunteer to clean for that. And then
sorry, real quick, with the cleanup stuff, when we're out there and when we're kind of going through our social media stuff and people are complaining, I know I said this before, it's really important to begin to help spread grace for the not only the people that have been damaged and the people that have been damaged, but as you're out there and you're hearing the talks, and if people are talking negatively about the people that have done this, we have to stop that conversation, because although it's obvious, no one likes death, no one likes destruction. We don't have to say that. But right now, if people keep condemning and talking about people, it gets mixed with those of color, period, dot. With that narrative is being passed that people are thugs, looters. And so that every time a Black Lives Matter protest happens, it's synonymous with thugs and rioting. And so we've got to split that so that when you're out there cleaning up, it's a great opportunity just to share the love of God. And when people begin to complain, redirect the conversation to that there's a bigger issue going on, that's not the case. And we're finding out in Minnesota, 80% of the people are systemic groups that are alt-right or some sort of white supremacy group. So it's not what even people think it is. But we don't want to allow that negative conversation because it gets merged into and is synonymous with strategic organization, grassroots organizations. Sorry, go ahead.
Love that. So I love you. That's how we do this. Okay. And I'm okay. So you can find out that. Go to the Brook Facebook page and you can find that out. Show grace. I'm struggling to even go to the march tomorrow because we have a severely asthmatic little boy that we have to keep safe. And so it's just a weird place for us. COVID's still out there.
Yeah.
We don't know why and how it's affecting people that look like us. And so it's a risk all around it. So it's a very hard place to be in. And so I hope you all can understand and help sympathize and empathize with the folks that look like.
And that's another opportunity for those of us with the lighter hue. And I'm sorry, I'm going to just keep injecting because these are the points for people to take, is that the folks with the darker skin are tired of carrying the weight, trying to go in the protest. So I've told another one of my sisters who called me very, very upset, precious spirit. I told her, this isn't your moment. You can have a seat and let others carry that burden for you, period. So if you're talking to people and it's just too much, this is not their moment. They don't need to be out there. This is a moment for those of us who are coming into an awakening, those of us who are in this spirit, that we take that on in a new courageous sense. And that is loving your brother, and tell them they don't need, maybe she doesn't need to go out. Maybe my sister can stay home. Maybe she doesn't need to go out. You know what I mean? So, but this is an opportunity where people ask, well, what exactly can I be doing? That's another opportunity. If you're talking to someone and they don't know what to do, stay home. Let other people get out and fight that for you, if that's the case. And if a person's struggling, that's just my 2 cents on that. And also, one more thing, sorry, sis. People to reach out, if you're legitimately, people are worried that they're always going to say something wrong or do something wrong. And we're always going to do something wrong and say something wrong. That's why the blood of Jesus is very, very real. Okay. And grace is very, very real, but find somebody that you can have a legitimate conversation with. Reach out to my sister. She loves to talk to people. But seriously, and reach out to me. Whomever your spirit feels like, I can have this conversation. I have a question. I'm nervous. I'm fearful, whatever the case is. Find you somebody, have that real conversation. It's all good. This is the moment. Let's not miss this moment. All right.
And then last but not least, let's shout out our mom. We love you, mommy. She is a leader and pastor and author and the holder of all the degrees divine, Linda Akile. And she does a live at like 2:30 on Sundays. She's amazing and so well-versed in all this. I mean, she's lived this, civil rights, the sitting at the council, she experienced all of that. So she's just a good resource to go to. So you can go to Rivers of Living Water Facebook page. We are rivers, and truly out of our belly shall flow rivers of living water. Everywhere we go, we bring life. And so that's our family motto. And that's what we're hoping to flow to y'all. and hope you all were blessed tonight.
And you can check out, we have a podcast too, where our family.
Oh, yes, Gen X.
Yeah. So we have a podcast, Gen XYZ. Find it on any major podcast platform. Check us out. Would love to hear your feedback. Love to just join with you in life and prayer.
Slow down. Instagram podcast.
Oh, sorry. Gen XYZ is any podcast place where you look. It'll be Gen XYZ the podcast. Instagram is Gen XYZ podcast. Facebook, you can find, I think my name is tagged, but we're also Martin's on the Move. You can find us there. And Twitter, we're Gen XYZ the podcast, I believe. So, and we're on TikTok, but anyway, but legitimately reach out. And we're always interested to hear from people and to figure out what people are going through, because I think this is our moment to share.
This is our moment. We were called and made for such time as this. So we love y'all. Yeah. I hope you were blessed, and we out. Thank you, Sissy.
All right. Love you.
Yeah. All right. How do I end it?
Get us off. I think, do I got to hit leave? Let's see.
No, I don't know.
You're so funny.